Cool. Ambu, welcome to the Discovering Us podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I'm pretty excited to do this.
And I mean, this is going to be episode number 1, and I think it's just so relevant, the fact that I get to have you on this, because this is a podcast obviously about self-discovery and our journey to really developing ourselves. And it's just so important to me just because you've been such a big part of my development journey as well. And so I think it's just really cool to have you join me on the podcast and to chat a little bit about your development journey. Cool. So I wanted to just give you a moment to discuss anything that's kind of been on your heart at the moment. So I'm just going to give you a minute uninterrupted to talk about whatever societal, or even if it's more comic, whatever thing is on your heart at the moment that you want to talk about, discuss, and rant about for a minute, and then propose a solution if you've got one.
There is so much to think about and talk about. A lot is happening around the world, and a lot of it has to do with people having what I call, well, I don't call it that, it is an actual phrase, like human error. Human error right now, I think it's been put to a spotlight because of a lot of stuff that is coming up, and it's just showing us up that we have a lot of things that we didn't deal with properly in the past, or haven't just dealt with at all, and now it's just been put in the spotlight, and now everybody's just going crazy. Like the issue of men thinking that they are the superior gender, it's like crazy. You can't be that. Over the years we managed to get away with it, but I think over the last 20 years or so it's been coming really clear that women are not happy with this at all. We haven't addressed it properly, and now it's like, no, we have had an error there and we need to sort it out. The racial error as well that we've had to sort out, been happening for years, and now we've been shown up that, look, we haven't dealt with this properly as we thought we did, and now people are frustrated. They wanted to be sorted out as soon as yesterday. How we handle young people, how we handle our politics around the world, being showed up. I think the spotlight is on to our human error now in terms of social issues, and we don't know how to handle it. That's why it looks like everybody's fighting at the moment, but actually we're not. The internet has kind of come on and shone the spotlight on our human error, because now we can talk about it globally. You can't hide social issues as easy as they used to in the 90s, even, as early as that. They used to hide issues very well. You could buy the media and have them report things the way you wanted to. Now, we can't do that. It's like, we've got social media. We've got the internet now. We can research and find out things so that we can talk about it. So yeah, that's what's on my mind. Was that a minute?
Who knows? But I think there's so many conversation points that come up, and maybe some of them are points for another day. But I think it's just been crazy how we've all known that these errors are there. We've all known that these injustices, inequalities are there, and you kind of think that people are doing something, and you kind of, all the different organizations feel like they're doing enough. But I think this has been the real assessor, and it's been this shock moment to say, nope, it's not good enough. And it's just a chance for people to reevaluate and reassess the way they're dealing with these issues and adjust, hopefully, for the better. So I think some of that stuff we will probably come back to. And I wanted to just kind of talk about you for a moment and kind of your journey. At the moment, before we get into that, is there anything that you're particularly passionate about at the moment?
Yeah, I think that's what I loved about the name of this podcast, Discovering Me, because it's something lately that I've been thinking about, like with my mate Andre, that my passion perhaps wasn't really ministry per se. I think my passion was really about changing the lives of people, in terms of people who have a difficult socioeconomic background, dealing with poverty decisively, dealing with education and the healthcare system decisively. So I'm keen to be one of the guys that matters in the national economy, so I can make that change. physically, like monetary change in people's situations. I feel like people who are rich have lost their minds lately. It's just my opinion. I think they've lost their minds. We've got enough money in the world to make sure that people don't go to bed with an empty stomach. We've got enough money in the world, in our country even, to make sure that nobody has to go to school under a tree. We have enough money in this country to make sure that everybody has dignity, everybody has running water, clean running water, sanitation and all of that. And it's just not happening. It's appalling. It just shows that people with the money have changed their priorities in terms of why in the first place they have so much money. I reckon we have so much money so that we can be responsible for so much more in our lives.
I love that. So that everybody has dignity. South Africa is the most unequal country in the world, and it's just crazy how that does kind of take away dignity sometimes. And I think that's so important. To be able to restore that would be awesome, because everyone deserves that. Everyone has a right to that, just by the sake of being human. Cool. So let's kind of take it back. Let's take it back a couple steps to what leads up to that. So growing up in Soweto, let's maybe just start at the beginning. So for those that don't know Soweto, the southwestern township, that has a whole huge history, and then maybe you can kind of speak a little bit to that history. But maybe just talk about kind of the climate and your experiences growing up in Soweto and what that was like for you.
Oh man, the southwestern townships. So that is a collective of townships in the southwest of Johannesburg. I was born and raised there. 1984 I was born. I got out of Soweto, left Soweto 2005 or 6. So I could say that I was raised there properly. I've spent my whole childhood there. It was fun as a kid growing up there. A lot of things was just fun, So, growing up in the mid 80s to the 90s, it was back when kids could play in the streets. We could play in the roads. You could walk as far as like 4 or 5 kilometers. You've gone doing who knows what in the woods, in the little hills. We played in the streets. Street football was proper street football then, barefoot, kicking this little plastic soccer ball. None of it to us seemed like poverty or a difficult time. It just was what it was. If you have a good looking soccer ball, we played with that. If you didn't have that, we'd jam a whole plastic bag with other plastic bags and make sure that it's tight enough to kick around, and that's what we played with. The guys hung out in the street corners playing dice or whatever, and that was cool growing up. It was fun. Like I've lots of good memories of growing up in Soweto as a kid. Flew kites, spinning tops, marbles, wire cars, play with tires, tie with a stick. We did all kinds of things, man. It was really cool. Making a little fire in the forest or around the corner somewhere. Just an open fire, just chilling with a whole bunch of people, which you can't do now. So that was the fun part of growing up in Soweto. It felt like Soweto was huge. It was like a whole world living in Soweto, because to get to one side to another in Soweto, you have to catch like 1 or 2 taxis to get to one side. So it's like Soweto was huge, man. It was not like a place that you could walk around in a day.
Yeah.
It was big. And soccer was a big influence as well in Soweto. We had our heroes in soccer that we admired, absolutely admired. Like, it was very rare to find a kid was not inspired by a soccer player. Like, we loved our soccer players very much. Kaizer Chiefs, Morocco Swallows, Jomo Cosmos, and the other one that I will not speak about, jokes. Orlando Pirates. Those are the big teams in them. Mamelodi Sundowns, but the Sowetan teams are like huge to Sowetans, It was part of your identity. Are you a Chiefs fan or Orlando Pirates fan? Like, that was the thing. You could be a Morocco Swallows or Jomo Cosmos, it didn't matter, but like Pirates or Chiefs was like a team that you would support. So it was cool. It was cool growing up there. We had our own difficulties that we were aware of as well. But generally, as a laity, as a kid, it was fun up in Soweto, generally speaking. I don't know if that answers you.
Yeah, no, that does. And so I think the question for me that comes out of it, you were born in 1984, first democratic election 1994, 10 years later. So again, you were still quite young at that stage. But the history of Soweto coming out of the Urban Areas Act, and so if people don't know about that, kind of look it up and the way that came about. And it's really a city, an area, you know, that's steeped in apartheid history, essentially. So I'd love to know, growing up there, because as you say, you're not necessarily aware of all of that's going on, that's bigger. You know, as a kid, you're just doing what you do. You're playing with your friends, you know, playing soccer, flying kites. It's, you know, it's standard. And I think that's what's great about, you know, childhood as well, is that you're not aware of all of that stuff, and that's awesome. You get to just enjoy yourself. But what was for you kind of the first experience of race, or the first time you were kind of aware of that? So I'd also imagine that interaction with, I don't know, people of a different skin color is limited then, if you're growing up in Soweto.
Yeah, super limited. So as something as simple as TV was sort of my first experience of a white person be like, oh wow, there's other people that look like that. And you begin to wonder without asking a lot, and you know, why do we not see them around where we are? You know, why do we not see them here in Soweto, in the township? Why do we see them in TV programs where their houses are a lot different than ours? It starts making you think that, yo, those guys live in those kind of houses. Those guys walk into that town, not our town. And then some of it also being some journalists who would come into the township every now and again. Yeah, that was part of the experiences that kind of hooked me into different races and stuff like that. And then obviously all of that starts developing at a young age, starts developing. You start wondering, oh yeah, like what is happening in this whole thing? Fortunately for me, I had parents who were involved in politics, in the liberation movement of the country at the time. And, you know, they felt the need to teach us as early as you were 4 or 5, you know, that things are very different. It's very hard to hear them then and listen to them then. But I think at the age of 7, 8, you got it. Okay. Most of my friends around us, we got it. We understood that blacks and whites are different, and blacks and whites are not allowed to be together. Blacks and whites can't mix and that kind of thing. And they didn't teach us as if that's how it is. They taught us as if, no, the government is enforcing this thing, it's bad, and one day it's going to be better. I'll give you one memory if you don't mind. I think I'm
No.
So one of my memories that never leaves my mind is when I was with my mother, we went to the city. Back then, Soweto, we didn't have like big supermarkets like the Pick and Pays and the Spars and all of those people. We didn't have them easily accessible in the township. So you had to go into the city, catch a taxi to the city, and do your groceries there if you wanted to get everything that you needed. And we were on one of these trips to get everything we needed in the city. And there was OK Foods at the time. They were massive in Elof Street. I remember that. And I remember seeing people walking in different entrances and exits. It was like crazy, like white people, wow, like white people, you can actually see them like in person. And now, wow, they're not allowed to be here. And then and in the buses, you can see that they have like the seats, you know, in the front, or, you know, they're not mixing well. In the train as well. I remember in the train, the first 2 couches of the train were like in leather seats and all of that, and they were reserved for white people, and the rest that were in plastic were made for black people. And I remember asking my mother, like, why do white people go in there and us have to go in there? She's like, nah, it's just how some people decided it to be like that, but that's not right. One day we're going to be in a world where everybody can use the same interest. We're going to be all together. Don't worry. And she like explained it to me like that. Like I remember the explanation that says, don't worry, one day we will all be together and be all better. Don't worry about it. And I was just like, yo, then it just kind of made sense. It was like, wow, I get it. Okay, this is the world we're in. So when 94 happened, it was like, I got it. I was a 10-year-old. I understood that your freedom has come now. even 1990, 1991, the release of President Mandela at the time, we understood it. I went to the stadium with my dad when he gave his delivery at FNB, I think in 91 or 92. I was on my dad's shoulders when we went there. Yeah. And going to school, wearing our ANC t-shirts underneath our school shirts during the violence between the ANC and the IFP in Soweto. There were violent tensions at the time, which was funded by the government at the time. They made sure that these guys must take each other out. So we had to wear these shirts so that, if you get stopped in the street on your way to primary school, they can say, hey, here, check, and you ANC, they can leave you alone. So, or at least that's the explanation we got. And we wore these things, man. By the time Madiba was like about to be elected, I was 10 years old. I had rocked my t-shirt, my white one and my yellow one. And I was like, yeah, freedom is here. Everything is going to be okay. It's going to be all right. So that was like a very vivid memory that I have of that.
Sure. And then high school, talking about high school. Now high school, we're in a space of now the democratic election has happened. This apartheid era has ended, at least in terms of segregation policy.
On paper.
Yeah, on paper. But obviously, there's we're still dealing with it. It's still very much there. And so, what does high school look like for you? Because now this is a place where all of a sudden that segregation is gone. So what are your first, the experiences that come to mind of interacting, with white people on a peer level,
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, man, high school. So I did my primary school in Soweto, black people, black teachers. Actually, in primary school, we had met with white people at some point. We'd gone to a high school, some high school or primary school, and I think it was called Greensmith or Greensmead, or I can't remember, Queensmead, something like that, in Greenside somewhere. So we had like some interaction and see something like that, but nothing significant. But now, grade 8, I'm going to this school now, Athlone Boys High. And we got some white people in the school. That was crazy to have a white teacher as well. Like, this is a person who's not going to explain things to you in your own home language. It's going to be all in English, like to understand science and maths and geography in that language now. I mean, my primary school, we did English as well. So I wasn't bad at English. I kind of got it. But to have it like that, like, now this is my medium of communication now. I've gone from Venda and Tswana to now, this is how I communicate in English now. Anything has to be explained in that. It was crazy. It was crazy to be with people who seemed so free around teachers. They had no fear of teachers. They could just speak their minds. Where I grew up in primary school, our black teachers, you couldn't back chat. It was like, I'm telling you this, that's how it is. If it's listen up time, it's listen up time. It was not like, wow, I pay my school fees, I don't need to be treated like this. It was crazy when we saw some kids like act like that who were not black kids. We were like, stuff, like, is this how this is how it is nowadays? And some of it you think, yeah, freedom has come. Madiba is on. We are now in these schools, so maybe this is what it's like. You can speak your mind. Child rights were there, so we're like, come on. So yeah, it was comical, but also very like eye-opening on what we've been missing out and stuff.
Yeah. And then, so an interesting point from high school, you mentioned how soccer was so core to the culture in Soweto and growing up, and whatever you were playing with, you were kicking something and playing soccer.
Yep.
But in high school, you then don't play soccer and choose to play rugby. Tell me a little bit about that decision and experience.
Yeah, because I played soccer so much in my childhood in the township. You play soccer, it's like normal. I just wanted a different challenge. I was like, I'm good at this. These people at school are not that great. So it doesn't seem competitive. Because look, when you play soccer in the township, it's competitive. Yeah. Like, I was not even nowhere near the cream of the crop in the township. You know, the guys really played good football. So you go to
Yeah.
a white school and, you know, you realize, oh, this is not as competitive as I thought. So
Yeah.
I tried out rugby because I thought I need to be shaken up a little bit. At first, I tried hockey. First
Okay.
practice, somebody gets hit in the head. First practice, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna do this sport." Thursday, I went to rugby practice, and I actually enjoyed that. You know, and I never looked back. Well, I'd play soccer at home every
Yeah.
now and again, but my sport at school was rugby. Definitely rugby. And it was cool to do that because then I could go home and sort of show that, you know, we've made it. People are starting to connect. We not only are those blacks that only play football, we are blacks that can play rugby now. The fact that there were other black rugby players at the time, it helped a lot because then you could point at them for reference. And if your parents are like, "What are you doing?" You could say, "Chester is playing," you know, and you know, so one day, who knows? I could be the winger like him, that kind
Yeah.
of thing. So,
Sure. Cool. And then, so then moving beyond high school, obviously we met at our church. That was, our common church at the time. And so as much as you say, ministry for you wasn't necessarily the core passion. I don't want to make this a religious podcast by any means, but I think it would be remiss to not at least address that when I think it has obviously been a core part of your journey and your development and your thoughts. And I think it is so core to people, depending on the person. So I just wanted to touch on it briefly. So just tell me a little bit about kind of your journey to, when we met, you were essentially my youth pastor at the time when I was coming to youth during my high school days. And so tell me about the journey that leads up to that. Maybe you can start with your kind of what was your first experience with Christianity, I guess?
oh yeah, okay. So leading up to that moment where I met you at Westville. Okay. So I didn't always believe. Let me put it this way. I grew up in a family that believes in God, that prays. My family went to a Zionist church, Zion Christian church at the time. And I think they still do. But, we learned, get on your knees and pray if things are tough. But I personally started growing a resentment for religion and for God because of how poverty, what poverty was doing in our communities. You must understand, I'm in high school. I'm starting to understand things a little bit better than I did when I was a kid. I could reference back to when I was a kid in the township and go, why did we have to go through that and other people didn't? It was a loving God sitting there all the time, just watching all this happen, and as a result, just resented the whole God idea and all of that. I think at 14, 15, I was like, now I can identify as an atheist. I wouldn't be as vocal as some atheists were at the time. I was not all like in everybody's face about it, but I knew that I didn't like the whole God idea when I was 14, 15. I didn't tell my family. It was just something that I just felt and believed. If you were a close friend of mine, you would have known it, definitely. So my friends that I grew up in the township with, they knew it. They knew that this guy, you'll never see him in the church, especially these happy clapper Baptist kind of churches as well. You would never see me in them. Like, it's not going to happen. At 16, that's when it happened by good mistake or luck. But since I'm a Christian kid, I don't believe in luck so much as I believe in like blessing. It definitely was one of those hidden blessings. I didn't see it coming. It was something as easy as a mate saying, "Come walk with me to this place. I'm going to deliver something." And then we walk. That's what we did in the township. We walked everywhere to go deliver this thing. We go drop off this thing. We get to the place it was in a school, one of our local schools in the township. Open on a Sunday. A whole bunch of people meeting in this classroom. When I say a whole bunch of people, I actually mean like 6 or 8 people in this classroom. They'd hired it for the Sunday. And we're meeting in there, and then we walk in. It turns out it's a Christian meeting. And there's some people who look really pretty. And we thought, okay, let's sit here a little bit because we'd like to talk to them after this whole thing is done. Because that's what we were into as teenagers. And we waited. We decided we're going to wait in this meeting. And we waited, and some guy went up to speak, and he spoke about God and Christianity, and I could feel myself kind of tense up, like, oh, here we go, these happy clappers. I was bummed at myself that I didn't see that coming. I just thought these young people are meeting together, probably a study sesh, or I don't know what it was, because we were not used to that kind of stuff in Soweto. So listened to him. He spoke about God and Christianity and stuff, and it was really good. He said stuff that really cut to my heart, to the point where I felt like he probably knew me and was a setup. Maybe I was being set up by all my mates to be in that classroom at that point in time, to listen to a person speak about my personal life like that. And when I say personal, I don't mean like he knew my name and all of that. It was just the life examples and the stories that he would use into his story and God. I was like, whoa, I can relate to that, definitely. I didn't want to tell my mates either. So when we left the place, after we'd discovered the girls and we'd spoken to them, but when I'm walking home with my friends, I was saying to the guy whose plan it was to go, bro, like, do those people know me? Did you tell them anything about me? He's like, no, man. I was like, no, between you and me, that was pretty cool. Yeah. If Christians are like that, if God can be like that, Christians, then I'm in. I reckon I'm in. So as quickly as like 4 days, I think it was a Wednesday night, we went to this other church that had an evening meeting on a Wednesday. And that evening was the evening I decided that I'm going to be a Christian. I'm going to be a follower of Jesus Christ, because the same thing happened that night. The pastor who was speaking had no idea who I was. We're sitting in the back, dressed up like these little teenage Sowetan boys at the back, and everything he spoke about really tore to my heart. It was an experience that I can never, ever take away. It's an experience that was enough for me to still be a Christian kid even today. Because I look back at that and I'm like, yes, I'm going to follow Jesus Christ with everything that I have. Doesn't matter what other people say, what people do. The journey will be dependent on that moment when I pretty much heard God say to me, I love you, I want to be in a relationship with you. If you would like, let's go. And I was like, yep, I would like to. And I went. So that's so much Christian journey. And then I joined that place that I went to that Sunday evening with my friends. We had discovered now that it's a Christian movement of young people, blah, blah. Joined them. Within 6 months, I was in their leadership ranks, and I was on fire, because I was one of those people. If you're gonna believe in something, you're gonna believe hard. You're gonna do things hard. You're gonna change lives. Let's change lives for God. And I've brought all my mates. My mates brought some friends, and the youth ministry there then grew to hundreds of people just coming to this place on a Sunday to hear about God. Hundreds of people, and we were playful as teenagers, as young people, but we're very serious about faith. Like, we knew our stuff. We were profound. We're not interested in chubby bunny and that stuff as much as we were interested in talking about God and what God has in store for us, his plan and humanity, how he loves people for who they are. We were quite profound little kids at the time. And that's what led me into ministry. I thought, if I can be in this path where I'm not interested in the small, little things that don't matter. I'm interested in the things that matters in people's lives. Then that's the path I'm going to take. And I decided that day that I'm going to be in ministry for a very long time, if not forever. And I gave in, matriculated as a Christian leader in Soweto Youth Alive Ministries. They still exist, and they're really, really, really deep people. They shaped my Christian perspective and all of that. And then when I left Soweto in 2005, I joined J Life Ministries that further trained me into youth ministry. It was pretty cool, because that at least opened me up into how white suburban Christianity is like. I had no idea at the time until then. Like, I knew in Soweto, I knew how to do ministry for Black people in Black areas, but suburban was foreign to me until I got to that place. I was with them for 2 years. It was fun. Realize a whole bunch of things that, okay, we are different. We do things differently. Yeah. Then I started working as a youth pastor from there. 2007 was my first year as a youth pastor. Officially, like, you're on a payroll for working with young people for God. It was pretty cool. I was in Port Elizabeth, did 5 years of that. I was the only Black guy one of the 4 Black people that was in that church. And yeah, we rocked, man. We had a lot of Afrikaans people in my church, and we rocked, man. We grew a youth ministry to a place where it matters to be a young person. It matters for a young person to have a voice. And when that seemed like it was something that I could not carry anymore for that particular church, I made the decision to leave, because I'd always had a suspicion that God wants to use me, but wants to use me differently to what I'd been doing then. I want to say in big things, but I'm very careful not to just say that as if being in that place was small. It was not small at all, but like the reach and the magnitude at which I think I should be doing things for God. I had maxed it out in PE, and now I need to be in a place where that could be stretched a little bit more. So Westville Baptist started happening then in 2012 officially. It was like, okay,
Yep.
now, ministry can be seen differently. And I think that's where I made contact with you 2013 or 14. I don't know, I can't remember. Yeah. So yeah, sorry, that's a mouthful.
Cool. No, yeah, that's great. And then we got to work together 2014, just after I finished school, which was obviously great, and got to learn a lot from you, which was awesome. And then things kind of changed for you. So then you were looking to leave Westville Baptist and go study further, and then everything kind of shifted in your life. And so do you want to maybe just tell us about kind of that journey over the next couple of years? What happens then?
Oh yeah, man. I just, I loved Westville Baptist. It stretched how I viewed ministry, and it also stretched my reach in ministry. It validated a lot about how I think and viewed God was wanting to use me. So even, while that happened, 2014, I think, was a big year for me. I can remember it on my birthday, 2014. That's when I realized I did a recap of everything that I'd done for ministry and God and all of that. And I just remember my best days being behind me. And I had a problem with that. My best days were behind me because, before Westville Baptist, before PE, before JLAF, I was in a place where it matters to be a young person. It matters to be heard. It mattered to be part of social issues. We did that when I was with Youth Alive. We were in leadership structures within our communities, and our opinions mattered. What we said was heard, and all of that. And now I'm in this church, these white churches that have some reach, but your push is not felt. Your presence is not felt in terms of what you think social issues are like, or the involvement of young people within them should be. I want to say, at some point, your level of profoundness is not felt at any level. You're part of a team where, are you bringing enough kids? Are you babysitting them enough? And I just remember thinking to myself, I'm so sorry, God. This is not why I wanted to serve you. I want to serve you just so I can tell some people how many people I'm bringing to you. That's not the point. The point of serving you is because we wanted to change the world for you. We wanted it, I'll put it biblically, we wanted your kingdom to reign over earth as it is in heaven. That's what we wanted. So what if they come into these buildings called churches? So what if they don't? The point is that we want them to know you, even in their homes. And when it was my birthday, and I thought, I am out, done with church. My big plan at the time was to go and further my studies in theology, to be ordained as a minister, because then maybe I can have a big influence. My peers would be those guys, the pastors, the ministers who've been doing it for years. Those would be my peers, because then maybe at that level, with those credentials, I can be heard. I can be heard when I talk about social injustices. I can be heard when I talk about the involvement of young people and the role that they play within those things. And that was my thing. It was that exactly. Just be pulled away for a little bit in Cape Town, study this thing, come back, with credentials enough to make you heard. And when I think about it now, I'm like, how sad was that? You know, to think, if I'm going to be heard, I need credentials. And I left, and I left the church. I handed in my resignation at the end of the year. And 2015, I was going to go. And then we had an unfortunate thing happen in our family. My dad passed away that January. And changed the plans dramatically. You know, the money that I would have had, you know, to go to university for that first year or quarter, gone, you know. So yeah, now I found myself no job, no place to go to. And fortunately I had some connections and contacts, and a friend of mine thought it would be a good idea to work with them in their organization. And I worked with them for two or so years. Yeah, I was with Arise Ministries, and we did that. And through them, I felt I was not part of the church. So now I've got that little freedom that I wanted. So the freedom and the voice to be heard. You know, it was not based on anything. It was not. What's the word? It was not. I don't want to say opposed, but it was not like squashed. You know, I was with my peers. They loved music. They loved worship. I loved people. I wanted to see people's lives change, you know. And I was in the right place at that time. And we rocked that for 2 years. And it was cool. Before I knew it, I was thrust back into youth ministry for this other church. And it was just out of experience and also the need for money. It was like, hey, man, you did youth ministry before. Do you want to look after our youth ministry until we find somebody? And I was like, yeah, but just know that I'm not here for a long time. I'm doing exactly that, looking after it until you get somebody. And I did that. And I think that place made it even more solid for me to realize, yeah, I'm not about church life anymore. Not in that I hate churches and church people. It's just, that's not how I'm meant to do ministry, to bring about change in the world for God. In that regard, it's no longer my pathway. Like, my pathway is something different. And discovering myself now, discovering me as a topic now is like, yeah, that's exactly the place that I'm in. I'm like, yes, I've just discovered that I do not have to be part of the machine, the system, to do that. I just need to be a follower of Christ that loves him. Yeah, man, with everything that I am, and still get to do.
And so essentially, I mean, that was what you'd known then from, 2005 when you said leaving Soweto and then moving out. I mean, that's to 2014, another couple of years, 2015, 2016, 2017. And then all of a sudden, everything you've known for the past 12 or so years,
man.
It's now figuring out what's next. But it's, it's cool to see the way that those thoughts kind of started of you want to be doing something different, and this isn't necessarily comfortable, and how you had these plans, and then really they all just kind of got put aside, and there was actually something different. So let's talk a little bit about the experience of figuring out what that was then. So obviously you kind of dabbled a little bit. You did a little bit of work in real estate, a little bit of Instagram experimenting with travel type content. So we just talk about this period of exploration, I guess.
Yeah, man. So the problem with knowing what you don't want to do is now having to find out what is it that you want to do then. Because I'd come from a culture of church work where your talents and your gifts and stuff is not stuff that you explore and play with a lot. When you speak about gifts in church, it's different type of gifts, spiritual gifts. But I'm talking about like a little skill that you always had that you never explored, like cooking, like being a salesperson, I don't know, sport. I never had to, because you're so busy with church work. But now that I don't have that, I was like, what do you do? So I had all the spare time to like figure out what I want to do. Plus the fact that I was not making money anymore meant that I need to be in a place where I'm making some money. So, hey man, real estate came through. Again, connections with friends. You're like, hey man, can I come hang out with you at your company? I'll learn how to sell houses in the meantime. I said to him, while I'm figuring out what I want to do with my life. And they were pretty cool with me to do that. So yeah, man, I did it. For a year, I was busy there trying to learn how to sell houses and all of that. I wasn't great. I wasn't terrible. But I knew that, okay, I'm not here to last. I knew I was like, yeah, this ain't me at all. So then, a cooking thing came along. So I like just cooking, enjoyed food. I've always enjoyed good food though. So when the opportunity came for me to cook for people, I stayed with two mates that we each had a turn to cook in the week. And my nights were Tasty Tuesdays, and I cooked, and I was like, it's pretty cool. Now I get to do the nice food that I enjoy. I'm like, that's cool. So we went with that, and I started Instagramming my food. Like, if I'm going to make a dish that I like, I'm going to put it on Instagram and, kind of track my progress. Because this is a hobby that I enjoy. Like, how some people have their photography account. Like, that's where they do their best photos. They put them there. And for me, it was like with food. If I do it like a nice plate of food for me, at the time I'm going to ship it to the Instagram account there and just track my progress like that. And from that, develop this thing. Like, I absolutely enjoy cooking. I did it. And that would open some doors that I didn't think where was a good idea to open them. And I opened them and I was like, okay, they're not terrible doors to open because I do enjoy it and I can do it. So yeah.
So let's pause there for a second. I just want to ask, is that something you've always been good at? The networking aspect. I mean, a couple of times, obviously, now in this development journey, you've said how you've been able to talk to friends and kind of source an income through your networks. Is that something you've always been good at? Is that something you developed and learned how to do?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've always had that thing that you can talk to people, relate with people. No man is an island here. You're gonna make it in this world. Make friends, make some good friends, and you never know how that can come through for you. You don't make friends with that outcome, obviously, but don't close yourself to one set of opinions and one set of people. Be out there, get to know people, because you never know which ones carry a key to a door that you need to open and get in. And
Sure.
I've always enjoyed that though. I've enjoyed going to the pubs, to the bars, and hanging out with people and just talking nonsense. Sometimes good stuff that has led me to where I am right now.
Sure. Yeah. Cool. And then coming back to the cooking, so that kind of, I think it's great to hear about, this something that really began way back in your high school days at the age of 16 and realizing you want to make this difference, and this difference in the inequality and poverty in education, as you said, your passion for really making an economic difference. And this doesn't necessarily start then out of wanting to earn an income, but it starts with a project to help people to make a difference and to address education. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, man. So I started wanting to obviously do something that I'm going to love. I'm not going to have a boss over me about things. I just want to do it myself so that I can get to a place where I can make a significant change in people's lives. The cooking thing actually helped me assess that this is probably the thing I should do, because I started taking my cooking a little bit serious. Even if it was a hobby at the time, I started taking it a little bit more serious. I think it was last year, if not 2 years ago, when I cooked to raise money for education for this one orphanage in here in KZN. I just picked out an orphanage that I used to visit when I was in church work, and I decided I'm going to pay for their fees for that year. And I cooked for 3 months, from September to December. I cooked for them, raise enough money, send it to them, and we sent about 18 kids to school that year. Or for 6 months that year, and it was cool. I was like, wow, this is what it feels like at a low scale. Can you imagine what you could do when you get to that point where you are making enough money to look after everybody. I was like, yeah, this is probably it. And I'm still there where I'm like, this is probably it. And I'm seeing little blessings happen within my cooking more than other things that I thought maybe I should explore. But this one in cooking seems like should be, it seems like I'm onto something with it. So I'm enjoying that. I'm focusing on that. I took all my eggs and put them in that basket now, and it seems to be working out so far.
And so that essentially then becomes the birth of Bachelor with a Spatula, and now has developed so much more beyond that initial, cooking for friends to raise money, to now becoming really your brand, your identity, your business in a sense, and that development. And before we talk a little bit more about that, I'm really interested to know your thoughts on this passion. Cooking has become a passion for you, but it's not necessarily, as you said, a door that you would have otherwise opened. And so I'm interested, do you think that this is a passion that you've kind of discovered, or do you think it's a passion that you've developed? Because obviously it's always, people always say, find your passion. But is this a case of you were looking for it and you found it, or is this a case of actually it was all the little things that you were doing just on the side that essentially started to develop this passion for you?
Yeah, definitely developed. Growing up at home, we always cooked. I'm one of 10 kids in my family. So when I left, there were 10 already when I left. I can't remember if we were 10 already. We were 10. Yeah, we were 10 already by then. So I'd be cooking. I'd known how to cook for like 20 people. I could do it on my own at the age of 14. So cooking was a chore. And so because it was a chore, when I left home, I didn't want to do it anymore. I was like, yeah, I'm going to eat takeouts. I'm never cooking again. But when that got reignited again in 2017, 18, I was like, yeah, this is cool. This is something that I could work on. And I am working on it. And while working on it, I'm realizing that I actually really, really like this thing. I really like where it's going, to the point where I'm like, I want to be a chef now. I'll teach myself. I will learn from other people. I'll do what it takes to make sure that I get to that goal of being a chef. And on the road of being a chef is obviously trying to make a living somewhere. And it's working out for us. The Bachelor with the Spatula thing, when it started, it was just an Instagram account to make sure I can track my progress to now being, a brand. It's a brand that we started. I think 2 days ago, I said, Bachelor with the Spatula has become a brand that is so close to my heart now than ever before. We not only cooks, but we're also pushing some products and all of that we feel that people would like and want to consume. So, yeah.
Sure. So what do you think the road ahead looks like for you with Bachelor and Spatula? What's the vision?
Yeah, man, definitely this thing, we want to have these little products that we push out, your coffees, your hummuses, and other things that are in the pipeline that we're talking about. That's our batch it crazy sort of in the brand. So Bachelor with a Spatula, we do batch it crazy, which is the stuff where we sell the coffees, the biltongs, the hummus, all of that. And then we have our batch please. Batch please is going to be where we go into markets, into different places where we set up a stall, a table to sell food, to cook and sell food there, like our wraps and our quinoa. That is the best stuff that we cook. So we want to be able to go to a market and sell that to people. And then we have our lunch club, which does fresh, healthy, tasty lunches every day for a price, and deliver them to those people. So those are the three things that it does right now, and they seem to be working out very well. This pandemic hitting now has made everything kind of go crazy, but we're trying to keep the ship stable and also stay afloat so that we see through the dream, the vision, the goal, so that if those are taken care of, then the passion is taken care of as well. So yeah, that's what it is. That's what the Spatula now does.
And then the last question I have on that is, obviously this has kind of been an entrepreneurial journey for you.
Yeah, man.
And I wonder, do you have any advice for kind of people who are looking to discover that passion for themselves or develop their passions, and they're exploring in an entrepreneurial sense? Do you have any thoughts or advice for someone in that kind of space?
Sure. I don't know, because I don't want to speak like I'm doing this, so you people must do that.
Yeah.
It's just how it worked out for me. I just kept walking. I just kept doing things. And by so doing, I walked into things that I enjoyed, that I would now see as something that I love. So that's what I would say to somebody: just keep walking, just keep trying different things, because you never know which one will catch fire and that'll be the one that you love. You never know. And that's what happened, because that's what happened to me. I don't want to give people advice on things that I don't know it work for me. So that's exactly what happened with me. I didn't know cooking would be a thing, but it became a thing because I just kept trying, just kept walking, and just kept dealing in it, and it worked. So anyone who is not sure what they want to do with their lives, I'd say the first thing you do is to look at your talents. You have any sort of talent. What are you good at? And you're not a douchebag for thinking that. It's okay. Just dig deep a little bit. Be like, I'm good at this, I'm good at that. And try that. You never know. You could be good at doing makeup. Yes. Start offering it to friends. Hey guys, can I use your face as a little, whatever.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Do it. I did it with my friends. Hey guys, you want to come to my house every Tuesday for dinner? I would invite a friend or two, and they'd come on Tuesday, we'd cook for them, and they'd say, yo, this is good. And I'd be like, okay, that's good. Write it down, that type of thing. So yeah, I'm waffling now, but that's pretty much what I would say to them.
Cool. And so, I mean, the second part of this podcast is also that, obviously we kind of have this idea and this vision of where we're going, and we can become so focused on, the road and developing our passion and finding what we need to do in life that we can sometimes maybe miss the scenery that we're passing along the way. And, there's those experiences in life that we just appreciate, and that have nothing maybe to do with where we're going or our vision or our goals or our dreams, but really just help us appreciate life and give us a different sense of gratitude. So I'd love to know, what are some of the big or small things that you just appreciate in life, or some of the experiences you've had that have just been eye-opening from you, just from a sense of gratitude, I guess?
I've appreciated people who are different to me. I think church life or ministry unintentionally teaches you to be in this bubble. You like a certain type of people. We believe the same. We sing the same and all of that. But being out of that sort of environment has helped me know that, okay, you could be something and other people could be other things, and that's okay. And that has been probably one of the biggest gems in my life, that I could be in a bar and sit with somebody who probably is terrible at how they handle people and how they handle their career. We can sit at the table that night and have a beer together and just talk and just be these people. And by so doing, you start realizing that, hey, you needed my conversation and I needed your conversation on this particular night. And that opens up a whole bunch of, I don't know, conversation and life change that happens within that. I'd say some of my favorite people, I've met them through that right now. And they've been connections. I've been their connection as well in terms of other things, like, meeting somebody who has just gone through a divorce. And their great idea to dealing with that is jamming a whole lot of alcohol in their system so they can survive it. And at one moment, they sit with a person that understands that gets them, that doesn't judge them for it, but that can have a conversation with them and say, yeah, I can help if you want me to. And we help each other. And the person is now facing a promotion at work. Whereas when you met them, he was like, if I'm on this path, boy, I know I'm gonna get fired. I know I'm gonna be useless at things, but I'm hurt. I'm very hurt. And you're like, you can get that. So that's one of the things that I've discovered, that I think are small things, is with people that are different from you, different opinions even. Could be gems that help you understand the world better, understand business and career better. There could be gems that form part of your network that helps you in your career as well, in your life path. So don't underestimate little meetups with people, little conversations with people. Have them and enjoy them.
Sure. No, that's powerful. And then lastly, I kind of wanted to ask, obviously, with your history and background and with everything that's going on at the moment, I kind of wanted to dive into a little bit of your experience and ask you a little bit about your experience with this Black Lives Matter movement at the moment. That, and I mean, I don't want it to be, it's not a momentary movement, and I don't want to sound like I'm coming across like it is. I think this is important conversations that are starting and need to continue. And there's the risk now that things fade off because already we're into it for a while, and it's obviously more concentrated in America, but I think it's just as relevant here. Especially with our history. So I'd love to know if there is a time, this is the specific question that I've got, is there a time in recent memory where you've been reminded of your race?
Jeez, man, a lot, man. A lot. There's a lot. And because I'm such a bubbly, happy person, I'm always with mates, and you can never tell. My girlfriend is white, and she can't tell. Times when I'm like, sheesh, it matters now that I'm black. Jeepers, the whole time it's not her that does it. I'm just saying that she doesn't know the moments when I feel like I'm black here, So yeah, man, it happens a lot. I mean, some of my memories was when I was in PE, walking with a white girl and somebody shouting at us. I can remember being at a spur in Port Elizabeth, sitting with a girl. We're having Wacky Wednesday or whatever. It was tears. And a couple with their kids, 2 kids, looking at us in disgust and actually saying, cease. And then I got up to the table, talked to them like, what's going on? What do you do? And just turns out that I'm with a white girl and they don't like that. And, we've had some run-ins like that in church work as well. Something that was very close to my heart, the place where I thought, this is God, this is where we do God's work, where some church members don't want to hear you because you're black. They actually don't think your opinion matters. What's he going to teach us? He's a township boy. Doesn't get us. Some people in the church treating you like you are their garden person, and watching them treat the cleaners, the helpers in the church and the garden people in the church, yet they treat me better because maybe I share, a meeting table with them. That kind of stuff made me realize you are black, man. It's like, when you have an opinion about politics, about social issues and all of that, then you start feeling like maybe I'm being black here because white people in church and out of church don't want to talk about these issues. It's too uncomfortable for them to do that. And because they are leaders over you, they can use that power to shut it down right then and then. Hey, man, we don't do politics here. And to be serious about it to a point where you feel like in church, if I were to push for this to happen, I could be fired and lose my job. And losing my job means I don't have any income. They didn't feel like that. I felt that way. I was like, I can't push for certain things here. How the heck does it happen that I can afford a car in a job for the first year when somebody who's been doing the gardens and washing the dishes or walking around this church can't even afford a scooter? How the heck does that happen in a church that's loving? You explained that to me, and that's when you feel I'm black here. When you can have a conversation quickly with a white friend who just does the same job as you somewhere else and they're getting paid so much money. And then, you had to ask how much you'd be paid if you did the same thing. And they start you right under 10,000 rand. In the 21st century, people get away with this stuff. They don't know, even people in church, they don't know that they're doing these things. Being in a church where I pick up the phone and somebody speaking to me on the other side is very nice and polite, and it's good, until they have to come to my office and meet with me in the church. And they come, then they realize, oh, I was talking to a black guy, and now they all tense up. Like, I didn't realize I was talking to you. Hearing comments like, you know, you sound white. And he's like, oh, that's when you realize, oh, these people have just realized that you're black. So that stuff is not good. I just realized that I've learned to get used to it. That's why I can laugh and giggle about it now. I've just learned. And I think I'm not special. Every black person has just had to. All our maids and garden workers and all of that, they've just had to learn to just get used to it. It's a normal. So when you see George Floyd thing happening, we're like, yep, we know. No black person is surprised. Like, people who are acting surprised on social media, it's like shameful, because obviously they're trying to make, I don't know, maybe subconsciously they're trying to position themselves in a place where they can relate with other white people. But some of us, we relate with white people, but we don't have to pretend that this is new. Nothing new about that. We know it. Growing up in Soweto, we saw police vans bombarding our township and taking our uncles and stuff and putting them in the back. Michael, that was life. It was part of it. It was part of Soweto experience. My house getting trashed because they're looking for my dad. Normal. It was okay for them to do that. So I've learned to get used to it. You know, when you can sit with somebody and you make a post on Facebook about something, and then back here at home, they act all bummed out. You know, there's like a passive aggressiveness because they know your opinion about the world out there. So now here, you're sitting with them at a bar and you can see something they don't like. And when you look at it, you go, oh, it happened on that day because I made that post saying my opinion about how people should be treated. Since when does calling for people to love each other despite of their color being a crime? Why does that piss people off so much? That you can say to me, Ambu, you gotta love people despite their race. And I'll just get triggered. Why is it such a trigger? So anyway, I'm going into that. I don't want to go that far in it. Okay.
Yeah, but it's, how do we make that unnormal? You know, how do we make it so people don't have to get used to it, in a sense, you know, because that's obviously not a solve. And, you know, so I think my two follow-up questions on that, they kind of tie together. One, is there a time that you can think of, you know, I really hope there is, but is there a time you can think of where you've seen someone get it right, or seen a people group get it right, and really do well to be anti-racist in the greatest sense of the word, you know? Was there an experience you can point to like that? And then is there, you know, what do you see the future? Like, what is the ideal future? How do we get it right more often in the future? You know, how do we make this unnormal so people don't just have to get used to it?
Look, history shows us that stuff. History literally just shows us. A whole bunch of white people have inherited this idea that, you know, if it's got nothing to do with you, you don't have to worry or bother about it. That's it. I'm telling you from what I know, racism stuff, apartheid, even in America, has been happening for years, 400 years plus, been happening. Black people have just learned to get used to it. But white people have also just learned to get used to going, let the people who deal with that shit deal with that shit. You know, so they don't have to worry about this stuff. It happened even in South Africa that majority of white people knew it was an injustice, but they did nothing about it. Much as like now we would look at countries around the world that are poor and we go, yo, that sucks. And then we carry on and do our thing. Like nothing just rocked our hearts for the last half an hour, you know? So we've inherited that. And there are other things that we've inherited though as well. History has taught us about people like Bears Nordier, the Bali who would be in a church and the Dutch Reformed who would pay for black students to go into school and be a reformed person and stand up for black people in his church and say, no, not in the voice of the church shall we allow this stuff. You know, those kind of people. Comrade Joe Slovo, who led the South African Communist Party before his death, died and buried in Soweto. His grave is in Soweto, about 3 kilometers from my house. His grave is there. Joe Slovo said, I will join the political parties, the system itself, and be with the black people and understand them enough to fight with them within the ranks. Those type of people are the ones that I've thought to myself, they they kind of get it. They are there and they're going, it's not enough to just be on this side of the fence and go, that's not okay. But, you know, I'm fine. I don't have to, let me not get too involved with that stuff. And church has been a big player in that sort of system. It allows people to just disconnect and be comfortable with their disconnect. Church does that. I've been in church. I've worked in township church and suburban church. I know that is some of the things, is one big thing that they do. One of my interviews around the churches was, am I political? Pretty much that person was saying to me, as a church, we are disconnected to issues and we are happy with that. We don't want to have anyone here rock this boat, because the boat has become financially comfortable. So everybody's good with that stuff. And I'm like, nope. The people that I've seen, there's some people I've also admired that are a good voice. The white people that are a good voice for Black people. They're on social media saying, no, I'm not going to keep quiet. I'm going to use my social media to be the white guy that says, no, not under my watch. No, I'm going to speak to people. And they call up meetings where they intentionally have a whole bunch of Black people and some white people where they can talk about issues and help each other understand one another, understand these issues as they are. And they do them very well. It's happening in Cape Town. A guy called Brett is doing it. In Johannesburg, a guy called Graham was doing it. You know, but a majority are just sitting down going, not this thing again. When people protest, these guys, they just, you know, they get called savages or just called, you know, all these kind of things. And yet they're going to get to enjoy the freedoms that come because of those people going to the streets. And how do you make sense of that?
And the sad piece is just that it's so, it's almost just, it's just sad how that is just so human nature. You know, even outside of race, the bystander effect being this thing of someone can literally be really in trouble in front of you and you do nothing because you assume someone else will, or because you're not sure what to do. And I think, how do we move people past that and allow people to be uncomfortable, but be okay with being uncomfortable and having the conversations anyway, you know? So the second part of that question is, what does the dream future look like for you in terms of people coming together to work on this?
Yeah, man, I think these kids are going to be the ones, man. These little millennials now, they're going to be the ones. Gen Z even. Gen Z, man. These kids are going to be the ones because they're growing up in a system where everything is on the spotlight. You know, like I said earlier, like human error has been put on a spotlight a lot, and these kids are growing up in that. And they're not going to be happy with that. The thing that scares me is that if I happen to be blessed with kids one day, they're going to ask me, what did I do when the spotlight was on those things? Just as much as I asked my dad, what did you do? You know, Mandela's in prison and all of that. What did you do? And then I realized, the Bali is actually involved. So there was something cool about that. And then when I look at my mates close to me and I say to them, have you asked your parents, what did they do? You have a Black friend now. Ask your parents. I'm mates with a Black guy, Mom. What did you do to make sure that this happens today? And they never ever thought of that. Family structure never taught them that. So I think to make it, it's gonna get better. I think these kids are gonna be the ones. I don't know if you follow the story online with the Donald Trump rally that he did, and it was not well attended in the US, and it's all because of these TikTok kids. Filled out these registration forms falsely, and they said, we're going to come to the rally, and they didn't go. TikTok and K-pop fans.
Wow. They
literally turned the whole thing upside down. Who would have known? Who would have guessed that the kids would do that? Kids were awake enough to go, let's just mess with this guy a little bit. And they did it. It changed how, that rally was done. My thing now is to make sure that the conversation is at the table all the time. We can't keep quiet, but it has to be there all the time, because we've learned through history that it comes up and then something gets done a little bit, sign a bill, and then everybody's quiet for 10 years. But that formula doesn't work anymore. We are not satisfied with that. I've been looking at these kids marching in the streets in America with their signposts. Some of them saying, you've messed with the wrong generation. We are not going to be all talk and be done one day. This is
Yeah.
going to be at the forefront of their conversation every day. You messed with the wrong generation. And when I was marching in with the protesters of the fees must fall a couple of years ago, I saw some of the signposts of these kids going, not under our watch. It's not going to happen. Not today. Not ever. It has to end now. You can see that these kids have learned about social issues from their parents, their grandparents, and they're like seeing this trend and they are tired of it. They don't want to see it happen again. So my plan is to always bring this conversation to the table. Always bring it to the table. Don't be quiet about it. Even if it makes people uncomfortable, it has to be there because some discomforts are necessary to help people understand a pressing issue and unite people together. It's just necessary discomfort.
And a side note there, if anyone wants to know more about the Fees Must Fall protest that Ambu mentioned, you can look up a documentary on YouTube called People versus the Rainbow Nation. And it's just a really good one that kind of highlights those issues and what kind of occurred on that time and the changes that came out of that, which is, yeah, that's a really cool one if people want to check that out. And I think even more so relevant today. And then, I think that was such a powerful thing that you said as well, a little while back there where you said, when your kids ask you, I think it's something we can all kind of take away from it. When your kids ask you, what did you do when the spotlight was on these social injustices? What did you do? And if you're not happy with the answer you come up with for yourself, what are you going to do to change that answer? I think that's a really great one. Yeah. And lastly, are there any closing thoughts from your side? Anything else you want to kind of touch on or leave people with?
I want to say to my white friends to put these kind of conversations to the table every time. It must come through at your braai and dinner tables. Talk about it. We all have those uncles, those family relatives that say things offside, and we just kind of blow it away because it's become part of our culture to just leave it. Don't talk about it. It's just uncle so and so. No, not today, not under your watch anymore. You need to do that personally because that's where it starts. If you can learn it from home, I'm telling you, out there, you'll be a force to be reckoned with. But I think young people are trying to do it the other way around, where they think that if they can just do it on social media, if they can just go out there and be big out there, but at home they're quiet. It doesn't work like that. Charity begins at home. At home is where you start. I couldn't do ministry out there when I was not good to my family back at home. I'm telling you, one of the best ways I started thriving in ministry is because I'd reconciled at home, how I treat my brothers and sisters who are essentially like the teenagers that I'm leading out there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And we are good, man. I don't have bad blood with any one of my siblings, anyone. Like, we good. If I talk to them, I talk to them in love. I love these kids to death, man. I had to start somewhere. From being that brat that thinks I'm always right at home. I'm like this. I'm always going to fight with them because it's just how family is. No, it's not just how family is. It ends now. We start doing things a different way. With the racial issue, it's the same thing. Uncle John's not going to get away with saying bullshit at the table anymore. He brings it up. He says, no, do you have black friends? He says, yes and no, but do you have black friends in the sense that you can go into his house and shower there, and you can shower at your house, that you can leave him to look after your kids. You have that sort of black friend that you can literally call up quickly and go, hey man, what are you doing right now? He says, nothing. You go, let's go and hang out and have a beer. That sort of black friend, not like black friend at work. I wouldn't have him in my house, that type of friend. You must ask them that, get to them and you go, no, then don't talk about like people like that because you don't know them like that. It's Michael's, it's what I do. I'm not telling you things I don't do. I'm telling you things that I do. When I'm back home in Soweto visiting and I'm hanging out with my black friends and they start going, white people this, I'm like, you have white friends, bro. Do you have white friends? Like, you can get in your car and drive to your house unannounced and open a fridge, get yourself a beer and sit with them. That sort of closeness. If you don't say this, like, stop, get to know people. Trevor Noah said it beautifully. Black people need white friends and white people need black friends. And until that happens, we're not going to reconcile some of the key issues that are happening between the two people. Because I think at the bottom of everything, we know that everybody is equal. Everybody should be equal. Everybody needs to get on. We know that. But there's this tension that's brought down by the generation before us that we don't know what to do with this thing, so therefore let's just leave it to people who can do it. And so when they do that, they start enforcing it with their kids. Don't get too involved with that stuff. Just do your thing and carry on. Not with us. Our generation needs to start going, nope, this thing has to happen. It will happen right now. We're going to make sure that it does. If you have that sort of attitude that you're saying, I'm going to make sure that it happens, I think we'll see a different place.
Sure. Ambu, thanks. It's been a great conversation. I've really appreciated it. And I think there's so much value to keeping these conversations going, as you say. So for sure, let's do it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me, man. It's cool, man. Can I say this?
Yeah.
My best friend Andre always says, always leave the world, your country, your family, a little bit different to what you got. And that's been in my head a lot.